Now, recently, Trump revealed his budget blueprint, and it contained massive cuts to a lot of social programs, including Medicaid, Social Security Disability, and food stamps, as well as other social programs like free school lunches and Habitat for Humanity and help for the homeless. Now, on food stamps alone, the budget calls for nearly $200 billion in cuts to the SNAP program. Now, that's actually nearly a quarter of their budget. So, gone, out of here. What, food stamps? No, get rid of them. Let's cut this to the bone. Now, Fox News, unsurprisingly, is going to have on a guest to defend these cuts by citing waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, this is, of course, Home Depot co-founder Ken Langone, and he's going to talk about, again, how poor people are just doing drugs.
I don't think people die if they don't smoke. I don't think people die if they don't watch movies. How do we make sure that food stamps are being used for what they're called? Food. And this, to me, is part of the problem.
Well, 44 million get food stamps under much more generous terms. Now, I'm not saying some, as you've indicated in the past here, might genuinely deserve some help, but this has gone way beyond food.
No American should go to bed hungry. No American should starve to death. That's part of our culture. That's part of our value system in America. On the other hand, we know what goes on. Hell, people use food stamps to buy marijuana. That's illegal. Or cocaine, or whatever the hell else these people use to get high. How do we make sure that we don't take a system that's well-intentioned that becomes badly abused?
Oh my God. How do we know that our money for food stamps is actually being spent on food? Oh, we can tell that. Yeah, we actually have data that tells you that. And we actually have data that shows the fraud rate of people. And like, you literally can't go into a pot shop, for example, and this is a lie that they love to tell. You can't go into a pot shop in California or places where it's legal and use your food stamp card in order to get pot. That does not happen. That's not a real thing. That doesn't exist. Okay? It's bullshit. And look, I'd love to see his sources on that one, or maybe not, because he doesn't have any, because again, his claims are bullshit. See, unlike Ken Langone, I actually have facts. Now, out of those 44 million people that he cites that are on food stamps, which, by the way, part of it was part of the result of the recession, and it's actually gone down as the economy has gotten better, it turns out that the fraud rate is less than 1%. Less than 1%. And not only that, but a majority, over 83% of the people on food stamps either work or are children or are disabled or are elderly adults. These, look, the thing is, there isn't this group, this huge group of people who are young and healthy and just don't want to work, going out there and spending your hard-earned money with food stamps. They're not out there buying steaks and lobsters and obviously, apparently drugs, marijuana. They're not doing that. That's not a thing. It's, ironically, this is fake news. But of course, they're going to couch this discussion, and they're trying to remain or appear reasonable when they're saying this. Saying, hey, we don't want people going to bed hungry. We just want to rein in the spending. We want to rein in the waste, fraud, and abuse. It's always that argument now. Before it was the welfare queen. Now it's waste, fraud, and abuse. That's basically what they're trying to couch this in. Okay? We just want to make sure that people are spending their food stamps on food and not drugs. I mean, how are we going to be out there to make sure? We got to have a system to make sure, but we already do have a system to make sure. That's why we have such a low fraud rate to begin with. You can make an argument that this was true back in the 90s, where we didn't have those the cards. In my case, in Michigan, it's the rich card. Before we didn't have those cards, people could, easily exchange those booklets for other things. Okay, that's fine. They could do that. We got rid of the ability for them to do that. And then the government really started clamping down on food stamp fraud. That's why it's less than 1%. And look, even to apply for food stamps, there's a lot of very, very rigid guidelines. This is a means-tested program. So just saying that all these people, we just want to make sure, well, guess what? We've already done that. That's why the program is so successful at cracking down on fraud. And then, look, all this is, it's that it's a very transparent attempt to justify these cuts based on fraud, as I said. And it's nothing more than demonizing poor people. Again, they say, well, you know, the people are buying marijuana with this stuff and cocaine and whatever else are you using to get high. No, actually, people who are poor, well, they can't afford drugs. That's why they do drugs at a lower rate than the rest of the population. You can't really do drugs that you can't afford to buy. If you're poor, you don't have you don't have the money for drugs. I don't know why people don't understand that. And look, that explains. And look, you ever wonder why in these states where they put in mandatory drug testing laws for welfare, why they barely catch anybody? They test hundreds of thousands of people at great expense to the state, by the way. More so than they would pay out for welfare benefits. And they find 1 to 2 people. That's it. Very, very, very infinitesimally small amount of people that test positive for drugs. It's a waste of money. Poor people do drugs at a lower rate, and you cannot buy pot with food stamps. Look, if you want to go after real welfare, I've got some real welfare for you. How about corporate welfare? Why don't we go after that? You want to save some money? You want to trim some of the fat out of the budget? Well, there you go. Go after the corporate welfare. We're giving billions of dollars in corporations right now. And there are companies that pay negative tax rates. Maybe if you're actually go after that welfare that we're giving these corporations, well, you can save a little bit of money. And then you could balance the budget. Who knew? Or what about this one? Why not go after the Pentagon? Last year, the Washington Post reported that an internal Pentagon study found $125 billion worth of bureaucratic waste. You want to go after waste? There's your waste. And not only that, interestingly enough, reading the story, the Pentagon actually tried to bury this report because they were afraid that if it came out that they were wasting $125 billion in bureaucracy, that they wouldn't get even more funding. I thought Republicans are supposed to hate bureaucracy. Why isn't the Trump administration saying, oh my God, look at all that waste. Look at all that waste from the Obama administration. God, we need to cut that $125 billion out of the Pentagon and streamline it, man. We got to save that money. We have to. We have no choice. Well, what are they doing? They're actually trying to shove more money towards the Pentagon. $125 billion worth of waste. No. Instead, what we're doing, we're talking about cutting food stamps with a historically low fraud rate. Spare me the bullshit, Ken Langone. You're out there saying, well, I mean, I don't want people to starve, but I'm okay with cutting food stamps. Spare me the bullshit. You guys don't care about waste, fraud, or abuse. All you're there to do is to spread the narrative that poor people are bad people, that they're into drugs, and that they're abusing government programs. I mean, there's some good ones, but there's a lot of bad ones, and we're just trying to weed out the bad ones. Bullshit. All you're there to do is to save a couple of bucks in your taxes. Let me give you an example of how much the average person pays in welfare benefits, by the way, for food stamps. The average American taxpayer making $50,000 a year paid just $36 towards the food stamp program. That was in 2012. Now, I guess, again, since the economy's gotten better and the food stamp rolls have dropped since the end of the recession, well, that dollar amount would also likely to have dropped as well. $36. That's for somebody making $50,000 a year. That's your average taxpayer. Ken Langone probably pays more. But for him, it's a drop in the bucket. to make sure that people are actually getting fed, are actually having access to food. Not drugs, food. Look, the only waste here is Ken Langone. The only fraud here is the number. It is the numbers that he is spouting ignorantly. And that the abuse, the only abuse here is the abuse against poor people who they're trying to shame, and who are they're trying to use them and to demonize them in order to cut government so they can stuff their pockets. That's what this whole spiel has always been about. That's what this war on poor people has always been about and always will be about. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.